Hey friends, welcome back to Coffee, Crochet, and Conversation. First off, shout out to my Apple Podcast listeners. That's where a whole bunch of you tend to hang out. The show's been really growing over there, and I am very, very grateful. Thank you for listening, sharing, or just vibing with me while you fold laundry and pretend you're being productive. I see you. If you can, leave a 5-star review. If you want, no pressure. This week's been a mix of small victories and emotional heaviness. My youngest son, he's autistic. We had his yearly IEP meeting, and I am beyond proud to say he's officially completed all of his articulation goals. So for those of you who don't know, articulation goals are like speech milestones that help the kids pronounce their sounds clearly. Like for TH, make sure it doesn't sound like a V, things like that. So that's huge for him. We used to always have to ask him to repeat himself, or like his brother was the sibling whisperer and we'd have to be like, what'd your brother say? He just understood him where the rest of us didn't. So there may or may not have been happy tears and celebratory coffee involved. I got a little adult recharge time. Me and my mother-in-law spent the day shopping and getting lunch, coffee, and just laughing. She's honestly my other adult support system beside my husband. For those of you who don't have a mother-in-law like that, I'm sorry. I have a great relationship with mine. She's wonderful. Sometimes you just need a mall run. Chinese food, coffee with dessert, and just somebody who gets it, you know? Today's episode, we're going to talk about something big, a little heavy. Major depressive disorder. I know, it's not the cheeriest topic, but it is real. It's part of my story and a lot of other people's too. And you're not alone. 1 in 6 people will experience a major depressive episode at some point in their lives. Today, we're going to be talking about what it looks like, what it feels like, and why those tiny wins, like brushing your teeth or making coffee, can actually be massive victories for some of us. Because let's be honest, some days, if you showered, that takes Olympic level effort. You deserve a medal and a latte. All right. Let's talk about what major depressive disorder actually feels like. I'm not talking the fancy DSM version with a clinical checklist and sterile wording, but the everyday my brain feels like wet cement and I'm powered by a guilt casserole. For me, it can be like trying to walk up a hill with a boulder strapped to my back. Every little thing. Dishes, messages, showers. Feels like a full-blown workout. And not the fun kind with endorphins and, for me, 90s music and cute leggings. You know, the kind where you're dragging yourself uphill, wondering what you did to gravity to give it a personal beef with you, and how you could possibly pay it back later. Sometimes it can sneak up so quietly, I don't even realize it's here. I'll just have what I think are like blah days. Nothing dramatic, just dull. I don't want to do anything. It's ugh. And then one night I'm lying in bed and it hits me. I really don't care if I wake up tomorrow. It's not some big cry for help moment. It's emotional exhaustion so deep. You go numb. You don't actively seek it, but you don't care either way. And then there's the days that it doesn't sneak. It slams like a truck. I'll wake up and think immediately, nope, hard pass, not doing it. I just want to crawl in bed, wrap myself in a blanket burrito, and disappear for a while. The world just feels too loud, too much. And you just kind of want to sit in the shower and cry because no one will know or walk in. What makes it tricky is that it's an invisible struggle. Especially if you've gone through it before, you have a mask just ready to go. flip it out of your pocket and slip your mask on. No one can know. Like, admitting the fact makes you feel even more of a failure. Stuff still gets done. Kids get fed, doctor's appointments get made, podcast gets edited. So from the outside, anybody just glancing, it looks like you're fine. And your mental battery isn't empty, but it's dangerously low. And whatever tiny bit of charge you have, you spend on everyone else, your family, responsibilities, everyone who needs something for you, which means there is absolutely nothing left for you. And that's actually really common. Research shows a lot of people with depression mask it so well that even doctors miss it because it hides behind physical complaints or just looking high functioning. And that's where it becomes a dangerous cycle. Because when you never get a recharge, you start breaking down quietly behind the scenes. You're existing, but you're not really living. Hell, you're barely surviving. Here's the thing though, and I want this to be loud and clear. Depression ebbs and flows. It's not linear. It's not something that you beat once and never deal with again. A good day doesn't mean you're cured, and a bad day doesn't mean you failed. It just means you're human, and your brain chemistry is having a moment. I've done therapy, and I'm on antidepressants, and I will still have a bad day. So meds can help with therapy, but it will always be something that you carry with you. The question is whether you can manage it or not. In fact, studies show 80 to 90% of people who get treatment, whether it's therapy, medication, or both, do see real improvement. Depression isn't the absence of good days. It's just having more bad ones than you'd like. But those good ones, they still count, and they are still real. All right, let's get into this week's Stitch Happens story. Now, full disclosure, I had a hard time this week coming up with one. Some weeks, something really funny happens. Some weeks, a story from the past just pops out at me. I think part of it was this week such a heavy topic that it was kind of hard for me to get into the funny, heartwarming mindset. But I figured one out, so here we go. I went through this skull pattern phase. Like, it's been going on for, I don't know, a few years. I love spooky stitches and creepy stuffies. My son loves them. I love the way that he looks when I make one. At this point, it's kind of not a phase. It's a, I don't know, personality trait. So I made this. It had a YouTube pattern, skull shawl. You know, wrap it around your shoulders. Gorgeous. Black. That was fun. Gothic, dark, dramatic. So I hung it on my wall, ready for the comments to roll in like, yes, Halloween queen. Awesome. Instead, the internet collectively decided that my masterpiece looked like a giant pair of granny underwear. Yep, my spooky shawl got demoted to gothic granny panties. And the worst part was, once somebody said that it looked like a pair of panties, I could not unsee it. So every time I looked at it, I was like, oh no, they're right. It looked okay when you wore it, but if you laid it out, it was like, you know, Paul Bunyan's wife left her underwear behind. But did that stop me? Absolutely not. I thought, all right, redemption arc time. I'm going to take that same pattern and I'm going to make it smaller and make it a bandana. Hopefully I don't get, I don't know, a skull thong this time. Spoiler alert, shawl patterns don't just change automatically into headwear by, you know, making it smaller. I tried every way to tie that thing on. Pirouette, Rosie the Rivet, mysterious forest witch. Nope, no matter what it did, it looked like I was losing a fight with a doily on my head. So I gave up and I tied it around my dog's neck, Mondo, instead. And honestly, he rocked it better than I ever could. He was a fashion icon. A short while later, he got cancer and he passed. So I took that little bandana and it's draped across his box of ashes. So yeah, sometimes your stitches get roasted by the internet. And sometimes they turn into a keepsake. Either way, they always tell a story. And in my case, it's the story of gothic granny panties or one very stylish rocker dog. And honestly, I wouldn't have traded either. You know what I've learned? You gotta start measuring success differently when you live with depression, like radically differently. Because success isn't always these big pull out the champagne, have a party type stuff. You know, new job, major breakthrough, a sparkling house straight out of a Pinterest board. Sometimes success looks like, hey, I threw away the leftovers before they turned into a game of, hey, honey, guess what this is? Or I answered that text that I have been avoiding for 3 days. So if you did the dishes today, do a dance. You took a shower, grab a reward Twinkie. You fed yourself something that isn't just coffee and regret? Well, that deserves a medal. When my kids were little, they used to leave me tiny notes that said, I love you, mommy, with little pictures that they drew of me. Or they would just climb on the couch and snuggle next to me without saying a word. My youngest, like I said, he's autistic. Sometimes he just knows and he gives the best hugs. Like when he gives you a hug, it's just like all your worries melt away. I don't know. There's just something different about it. And honestly, there were days that was enough to keep me going. I'd look around my messy house and think, okay, the kids are fed, they're healthy, and they're happy. That will be my win today. And that really was enough. Research shows that even tiny achievements, such as finishing a chore, answering a text, can boost your motivation and kind of help you shift your brain out of that stuck place. That little reminder that I was still showing up for them, even when I felt empty, carried me through until I had a little bit more in the tank to give. Like a quick shot of espresso. Not enough to kill the funk, but enough to get me to the next small win. Now, when I was a teenager, success looked a little different. Mind the cats, they like to play when I record. School was my safe zone. It was the one thing in my life that I could control. I had some unhealthy coping tools, but that's a story for another episode and a different topic. But the healthy ones, I poured everything into them. Studying, projects, anything that would make me feel like I was good at something. Pass a test, ace a project, get a compliment from a teacher. It was that little spark of, see, I can still do things right. It's my brain that's wrong. As adults, though, sometimes we forget how to give ourselves grace. We let that productivity guilt monster, that one little voice that says, you have to do more, be more, accomplish more, run the show. And listen, that monster lies. You do not need to make cereal from scratch every morning or run a Fortune 500 company to be considered productive. Some days, you just have to do what you have to do. Feed your kids, go to work, answer an email, and then stop. No guilt. You're not lazy. You're not failing. You're maintaining. Mental health experts agree maintenance is a real and valid part of recovery. Surviving a hard day is not laziness. It is strategy. It's how you keep yourself in the game long enough to get you to better days. That's what I like to call maintenance mode, where the goal is not thriving. It's surviving. Sometimes the win is just making it through a bad day. And over again until you get to a good one. People who've never carried the weight of depression, they don't always understand. They'll say, just think positive. Meanwhile, you're over here dragging your metaphorical boulder up the mountain whispering, buddy, I am thinking positive, but this bitch is heavy. And hey, at least I'm still climbing. You don't have to make it to the top every day. You just have to keep moving. One tiny win, one small step. Because every time you do, you're reminding yourself, you are still here. And you are still trying. Time for this week's Brews news. Epstein update. So the House Oversight Committee is still digging through Epstein-related documents, flight logs, calendars, cash ledgers, and they've been getting new batches as recently as late September. On October 17th, transcripts from former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta, the guy behind the plea deal, were released. Survivors and lawmakers are still saying there are thousands of files that are sealed, and they're still pushing for full disclosure through the Epstein Files Transparency Act. It's not really a major update, although Virginia Dufresne's book, I do believe, was just released. So I'm going to get that and check that out, and I'll give you guys kind of a rundown of what's in it, what's accused. Either way, we're going to keep talking about this because powerful people should not get a free pass. And if we stay silent, they are. The shutdown shuffle. Now, the federal government has been shut down since October 1st, making this the second longest shutdown in U.S. history. Roughly 900,000 federal workers are furloughed and another 2 million are working without pay. And why? Partisan standoff over Medicaid funding and spending levels. Republicans in the House, who are led by Speaker Mike Johnson, have refused to negotiate, while Democrats insist on a clean funding bill. The Senate has failed 12 times to advance a GOP-backed plan. A proposal was made to pay only certain federal workers, and it was blocked because the Democrats argued that all workers deserve a paycheck, not just the ones they pick. Imagine showing up to work and not getting paid for weeks. That is the life of millions right now. And as of this recording, starting November 1st, food assistance for 42 million people could be delayed if the shutdown drags on. So if you can, donate to your local food bank. I know a lot of towns have these little like pop-up pantries where like next to grocery stores and stuff where you can throw in a couple cans. So if you can afford to, because times are tough, I'd recommend doing that. Tariff tantrum. On October 25th, President Donald Trump announced an extra 10% tariff on Canadian imports. Why? Because Ontario, not all of Canada, Ontario, aired a TV ad quoting Ronald Reagan criticizing tariffs during the World Series, no less. And Trump called it a hostile act. Ontario Premier Doug Ford agreed to pull the ad, but the Wall Street Journal, which their editorial is usually really right-leaning, and some Republicans criticized the move, saying tariff power belongs to Congress and not the president. It's supposed to be used strategically and not just because they said something you didn't like. Next up, it's a Supreme Court showdown on November 5th. We'll finally have a call on if Trump overstepped his authority under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. And honestly, apparently quoting Ronald Reagan now counts as a hostile act. Who knew? We're going to wrap this up with a call to vote. This Tuesday, November 4th, local elections are happening across the country. School boards, city councils, levies, and more. This isn't the big one. There's a few special elections, but it's just a smaller scale. But where I live in Ohio alone, up to 350,000 voters could be purged if they haven't voted recently. It's a part of what Ohio has. It's a regular 4-year voter roll maintenance cycle. It basically means if you don't vote in so many elections, they could drop you. So even a small local race, casting a ballot keeps your registration active and makes sure you're ready for the big elections next year. Local races also shape daily life, so don't sleep on your vote. Even if it's just one little check mark, it matters. I think on mine, there's one that, like the school board, there's 3 people running and 3 seats open. So it really, they're going to get it either way by default. But by going and voting, I'm keeping my registration active. So I don't have to worry about it when it comes time for a big election. I don't care how you vote, just vote. And that's it for our Brews News. You want to know what depression is really, really good at? Lying. Oh, it's a good liar. It whispers that you're a burden. Nobody wants to hear from you. It's better if you just stay quiet and invisible if you weren't here or never were. And that's how it wins, by isolating you. When you are isolated, there isn't anyone to counter that voice, to tell you that is wrong. Studies back that up. Isolation just doesn't come with depression. It actually makes it worse. It feeds that cycle until you feel even more stuck. But connection, even the tiniest bit of it, can be a literal lifeline. And it can just be something simple like reaching out to a friend online, saying hey in your crochet group, curling up with your pet while you talk to them like they're your unpaid therapist. Let's be honest, Cloud and Sky have heard everything. They would sit in a room with me. I did my therapy virtually. They'd be in my bedroom with me. If I have a bad day, they sense it, they're with me. They probably know more about my trauma than my actual therapist. And they don't care. They're my non-judgmental sounding boards. As long as they get pets and treats. Now, I will get a side eye if I don't pay the toll. And finding a community doesn't always mean being social. Sometimes it's just not disappearing. There's a balance between needing alone time and avoiding total isolation. Because yes, quiet time can heal. But if you have too much of it, well, then you start believing those lies your brain tells you. No one cares, you don't matter, and your absence wouldn't be noticed. And that is depression's lowest below the belt hit right there. Like, if a ref were in the room, he'd be calling a foul. It tries to convince you that you're disposable, but you're not. You matter just being here. Now let's talk about asking for help without a side dose of guilt. For years, therapy was treated like a dirty word. Like if you needed help, you were crazy or weak or failing somehow. And that is honestly just nonsense. If somebody broke their arm, you would not shame them for going to the hospital over a broken bone, right? What does it matter if it's a broken heart or a tired brain? The good news is that the stigma is starting to fade. More people are talking openly about therapy now, and research does show that attitudes are shifting. Too many are still held back from getting help that could truly change their lives. But the more we talk about it openly without shame, the more we can help change that narrative. And that's why I don't hide it. I needed it, I've gotten it, and I will never be cured. I will always have moments that I struggle. I will have moments where I second guess myself. But honestly, if people judge you for getting help, it says more about them than it does about you. Half the time, they're just trying to convince themselves that they don't need help. See, healing has a funny way of making other people uncomfortable. Like you work on yourself, you address your issues, you work on making yourself a better person, and it makes them look at themselves, and they don't always like that. But hey, that is not your problem. I like to watch RuPaul's Drag Race, and my favorite quote he says is from his mom, and it says, "If them bitches ain't paying your bills, you don't pay them bitches no mind." If you tell someone that you're getting therapy or thinking about getting therapy, and they try to be a negative Nancy, just remember that quote. And if someone reaches out to you, answer. You don't have to have perfect advice or magical words. Sometimes just saying, "I'm here," is enough. Just reminding them they have at least one person that cares. Connection doesn't have to fix anything. It just reminds us that we are not alone in this mess. That "I'm here" can be the anchor someone needs to keep climbing up that hill. So here's your little pep talk before we wrap up this segment. If you're in a spiral right now, don't look at the entire mountain. Just focus on one small act of care each day. Go take a shower, brush your teeth, make a cup of coffee, feed your pet, crochet a row. Whatever feels doable in the moment. See, even these small things, they chip away at that heavy boulder you've been carrying. Every time. Did a load of dishes, chip. Took the trash out, chip. Answered an email, chip. Over time, it gets lighter. The boulder gets smaller and smaller until one day, it's not a boulder anymore. It's a pebble. You keep it in your pocket because, like I said, it never goes away. You also keep it in your pocket to remind yourself on those bad days that you've carried worse and survived. Keep going. You do not have to climb fast. You just have to keep climbing. This week's card is the Hermit. The image is hauntingly peaceful. An elderly man is standing inside a forest cave. You can see a soft teal light shining in from the cave's opening. Just enough to remind you there's still a world outside. He's got long white hair and a beard that looks like it's seen a few centuries of wisdom. In his hand, he holds a tall wooden candlestick with a long white lit candle. What I love about the candle is it isn't just light, it connects. The wood from the candlestick actually grows up and merges into the limbs of the tree inside the cave, linking the flame to nature itself. Tiny fireflies drift around him like the universe is whispering, "You're not alone in here." The Hermit is a card of introspection, solitude, and inner wisdom. The kind of quiet that isn't empty, but sacred. It's about stepping away from the noise of the world, not to disappear, but to listen to yourself, your truth, your light. And that hits close to home. What with what living with depression can feel like. Because when you're in that dark cave sometimes, it can be hard to tell the difference between withdrawing to heal and isolating to hide. Both can look similar from someone looking from the outside, and they come from completely different places. The Hermit reminds us that solitude can be medicine when it's intentional, when you take time to rest, reflect, and reconnect with your inner spark instead of running from it, because that's how you find your way back out from the cave. Not all at once, step by step, carrying a little of that light with you. If the Hermit shows up reversed, though, the message shifts. It becomes a warning that the silence might be getting too heavy, that instead of listening inward, you're getting lost inside your own echo. The reversed Hermit can show up when reflection turns into rumination, when we pull so far inward that we forget we're still a part of the world. It asks, are you still seeking light, or have you convinced yourself there's none left to find? Sometimes the wisest thing isn't to go deeper into the cave. It's to open your eyes and realize help might already be waiting at the entrance. If you stay in the cave too long, you risk the tree in the forest growing over you, swallowing you whole, and not letting you see any light, because candles can only burn for so long. Eventually, you have to grab for another flame, and you'll be left in the darkness. So if you're in your hermit era right now, that's okay. Let it be sacred, not shameful. Find that light inside the quiet. Let the fireflies keep you company. And when you're ready, step back and head towards the teal glow, waiting at the edge of the cave. You are not lost. You just learning your way back. All right, guys, before we wrap up, I just want to leave you with this reminder. Progress isn't linear. Healing is not some perfect upward graft. It is a scribbly mess of good days, bad days, and barely hanging on days. Some days you might stumble and that boulder feels heavier. Some days you get to chip it away and it feels lighter. Both days count. If you're still here, still trying, still getting up in whatever way you can, that is strength. And survival is strength. Even if all you did today was hit play on this episode. I'm proud of you. You showed up. That matters, especially to me. So if this episode was helpful in any way, I'm glad I could be there for you. And remember, even the Hermit finds his way back to the light. Tiny wins, small acts of care and connection. That is the path forward. Thank you for spending part of your day with me again, for letting me into your world, your routine, your earbuds, and maybe your heart a little bit. As always, like, share, subscribe, follow, we have to feed that algorithm monster. Keep your stitches sassy, your coffee strong, and your spirit grounded. I'll see you guys next week.